Hey everyone, Mike Power here. We're at the Type S Auto Garage and we're doing a bulb replacement on this 2015 Chevy Silverado, and we're gonna give you a step-by-step tutorial on how to get it done. So today we're gonna be replacing the low beam and the high beam bulbs. For the low beam bulb replacement, we're going to be using our H11 single beam LED kit. For our high beam bulb replacement, we're going to be using our 9005 single beam LED kit. Now the installation process is easy, and we're going to be using two tools today. One is a flathead screwdriver, the other is a plastic pry tool. So these headlights are a little bit aged and these halogen bulbs just aren't cutting it for us anymore, so we're going to upgrade them with our LED bulb replacement. So for this Chevy Silverado, our low beams are here at the top of the headlight and our high beams are at the bottom of the headlight. And we're going to go inside and show you how to swap them out, but we're going to start on the passenger side and we'll show you why. So the reason we're here on the passenger side first is because it's a little bit more of an in-depth process, but don't worry, it's super simple. We just have to get the air box out and remove some paneling behind the headlight to get to the bulbs. So the first thing we're going to do is remove this air box, and what we need is our flathead screwdriver. There's 4 bolts on each corner of the air box and a hose clamp holding it to the air intake. So we're going to go ahead and get those loosened and get this box out. So the first thing we're going to do when removing the air box is unplug our map sensor. These can be a little tricky sometimes, so you might want to use the flathead screwdriver if it's stuck, but this one's coming out pretty easy for us. Get that removed and out of the way. So next up, we're going to unscrew all 4 corners of the air box and get it ready to be lifted out. Now you want to make sure you don't lose these bolts or drop them into the engine bay. So make sure you take them out and put them somewhere safe. So now that we have all of our bolts taken out on all the corners of the air box, we're going to move over to the hose clamp here on the intake and get that loose, but not too loose because we don't want it to fall off, just loose enough that we can take the air box out. Now we'll just take our air box and filter out of the way. So next up, what we're going to do is remove these clips right here on the shroud, along with the clips that are zip tied to the harness. So we can get out of the way, we'll be able to move this shroud and get to the back of the headlight. First thing we're going to do is take our flat-headed screwdriver and get it behind the button of the clip and start to lift it out. Then we can switch over to our plastic pry tool and get it behind the button to get it out, and then get the whole clip out as well. Now we're going to take our plastic pry tool and slip it behind this zip tie clip and gently wedge it out. Now that's out of the way, we can get this down a little bit and move this shroud down, and now we're towards the back of the headlight. So now that we have access to the back of the headlight, what we're going to do is remove the caps that are covering the bulbs so that we can get access to them. And what we do is we just turn this counterclockwise, and you'll feel it unhook from the headlight housing. And you'll be able to just pull straight out. And we're going to do the same for the one just below it. That's where our high beam is. Counterclockwise, pull out. Then once we get this out of the way, we now have access to our headlight bulbs. So we're going to start with our low beam headlight, and we're going to turn this again counterclockwise to get it unlocked from the housing, then pull straight back out. Now we have our bulb. What we're going to do is we're going to unplug our bulb from the harness and get that out of the way. So if you want to play things on the safer side when replacing your bulbs, you can go ahead and take out your factory bulbs and bring it with you and use as reference to make sure you're getting the right replacement. So now that we have our low beam H11 bulb out, we're going to go ahead and replace it with our H11 LED replacement. Before we install our LED replacement bulb, what we're going to do is plug it into the wiring harness. Once we do that, we're going to turn on the headlights and make sure it turns on. If the LED bulb doesn't turn on, what we're going to do is rotate this plug 180 degrees and plug it back in. Then your light should be working perfect. Now that we have our bulb plugged into the harness, we're going to go ahead and push it in to the back of the housing. We're going to line up the teeth, and once we line them up, we're gonna spin clockwise until it locks. Then once that's in and good to go, we're gonna go ahead and put our housing cover back on. There's a little arrow right here marking down, so we can make sure the orientation is properly. And once we get it locked into place, we're just gonna spin it clockwise into the lock position. So now that our low beam bulb is done, we're gonna switch over to the high beam. Gonna turn the bulb counterclockwise until it unlocks, so you'll feel it pop out. Then we'll bring it up out of the way so that we can get the plug undone. We can bring over our LED replacement bulb. So now we're just going to plug a harness into the headlight. We're going to line up our 9005 replacement bulb, push it into the backside of the headlight housing, line up our gears in the bulb until you feel it pop in. And once it pops in, we're just going to turn it clockwise until it locks. Now that that bulb is installed, we can put our cap back on. Now that we have our LED bulbs installed, we can go ahead and put everything back, like the shroud, the harness, and the airbox to finish up the installment on the passenger side. Now we're on the driver's side, and it is much easier. What we're gonna do is reach in and remove the caps on the back side of the headlight housing to get them out of the way so that we could get access to our bulbs. So now we're gonna do our low beam bulbs first. We're gonna turn these counterclockwise and pop them out. We're gonna go ahead and unplug our bolts. Then we're gonna go ahead and plug in our H11 LED replacement and install it back into the headlight housing. Gonna line up the gears on the headlight bulb. And once it lines up, we're gonna turn it clockwise until it locks. Then we're gonna repeat this process for the high beam bulb. Counterclockwise to unlock and pull out the bulb. Unplug it from the headlight harness. Then bring in our 9005 LED replacement and get it plugged in. Now that's plugged in, we're gonna reach down in there and get it into the back of the housing. Get the gears lined up, then spin it clockwise to lock it. Now that we have both of our LED replacement bulbs installed, we're gonna go ahead and put our housing caps back on. And once it's pushed in, we're gonna go ahead and lock it by turning it clockwise until it stops. Then we get our low beam cap installed, and then we're gonna turn it clockwise as well until it locks. And then you're finished. And that's a wrap on our LED bulb install on this Chevy Silverado. You can tell the headlights are looking much more bright and beautiful, but if you guys have any more questions, make sure to reach out to us and we'll see you on the next one.